we're about 500 startups, right? However, what I didn't tell you before is that since 2024 to 2025, the number of startups in Cyprus, according to Startup Blink, increased by more than 71%. So if we are going to become a hub, that means that we're going to probably increase 3, 4, 5x, and that requires a lot of capacity. The more specialized these people are, the leaders, I think the better chance we have of really capturing a big part of this $1 trillion economy. I mean, just alone AI was forecasted to be about $15 trillion opportunity until 2030, and that was a year ago. So this economy is really growing so fast that the only way to capture it is to build correctly. And I think that's where we go back to saying that this is where we need these types of leaders to come in, step up, and really lead the way.
Dear Demetris, dear Chief Scientist of Cyprus, it is a great pleasure to be joining you in the Fearless Future podcast, a series that is hosted by UCLan Cyprus. So it is an honor for me to be here with you today. Of course, it's a great pleasure to have with us Ms. Ingrid Camilleri, Cablenet's Chief Data Officer. And I'm looking forward to join your discussion on the future of data, artificial intelligence, and the evolving roles of the Chief Data Officer and the Chief AI Officer.
Thank you, Irene. It is great to have you here with us. It is great, I think, to have the rector of the UCLan Cyprus with us today. Thank you for accepting the invitation also, Ingrid. I think this is a monumental opportunity for us as we're having UCLan hosting us with the Fearless Future podcast, which is a podcast that we're bringing to the world from Cyprus to actually have people start understanding that we shouldn't fear technology, we shouldn't fear artificial intelligence, but rather that we should have a proactive approach. This is a feature that has already recorded a few episodes on podcasts, and we're now building the future of it from a community perspective, right? Bringing in everything about data and the importance of the Chief Digital Officer and the Chief AI Officer. So thank you for making the time, and thank you for hosting us with this wonderful podcast.
Thank you also. It's interesting and excited to join this conversation.
Thank you. Pleasure to both. Before we start our conversation, I think it will be beneficial for our audience to know that today's podcast will be in two parts. The first part of our podcast, it will be our discussion on the Cyprus landscape and also the UCLan Cyprus initiative to create and host a Chief Data and AI Officer community in Cyprus. And the second part of our podcast, you will be joined by Mr. Deepak Chandani, who is the CEO and Chief Data Officer of Perfect and Complete Solutions, where you will further discuss the roles of the Chief Data Officer and the Chief AI Officer accordingly. So that said, I would like us to start our discussion with some facts. So it is a fact that Cyprus is making a remarkable progress in positioning itself as a hub for innovation and digital transformation as well. Now, this is also evident by our position in the Global Innovation Index. In 2025, we are in position 25th, and this is 2 positions higher than the year before. In my view, this is a great achievement for Cyprus, and it recognizes Cyprus as an innovation leader, especially given that Cyprus is performing above its expected level of development at this stage. So, Demetris, as one of the driving forces of Cyprus' research and innovation strategy, could you give us your view on the existing ecosystem? Where do we stand today? And how did we manage to improve in such a short time, and increase our positioning? And also, where do we currently stand in terms of the government and corporate readiness for AI and data-driven innovation in Cyprus?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very loaded question, but let's break it down into 3 steps. So first of all, on the Global Innovation Index, we've moved actually from 28 in 2023 to 25 that we are here. So that's basically 3 positions in the last 2 years. But since 2024, as you've outlined, we've actually moved up 2 positions. I will say that what we do very well reading from the Global Innovation Index is basically having a very strong performance on the outputs based on the inputs that we're having. So what this means is that we're eventually producing more as an output compared to the actual amount of investment we're putting in. I think behind this, I would say success is our focus, our extensive focus on really accelerating innovation and really looking at how do you commercialize it and having those discussions while not losing the focus on basically the basic research, the applied research, the translational research that we have. And you see here that at the Research Innovation Foundation, we have found ways to rebalance and refocus investments that basically give us, I think, this acceleration. Without saying that we don't need to do more on the infrastructure side, on the human capital side, where we also have those challenges. Now, when we look at the DESI index, right, which is the digital decade, right, we see basically there that we are doing very well. However, I highlight one of the intentions of the community, right, and the chief digital officer and the chief AI officer is to really help us make mainstream the importance of data, the importance of analytics, the importance of cloud, the importance of artificial intelligence. So one who looks at the report, at the Digital Decade report, will recognize that Cyprus has not been given any points for all of these technologies, although we are using them actively, and I'll talk about them in a few words. But I'll say here, we have human capital that is really investing in really moving forward onto entrepreneurial journeys and startups. As an ecosystem, we have more than 500 startups, more than 140 tech innovators, more than 4,000 entrepreneurs, more than 3,500 researchers. Our connectivity on both broadband and 5G is towards the most advanced in Europe. Our capability of integrating digital technologies is slightly above the European average. Our digital skills is slightly below. And this is an opportunity for us to really build the infrastructures, build the items correctly. So before concluding, I would say that initially when I came, I found an ecosystem where we had approximately 3.2% adoption of AI. In less than 2 years, we have already hit the 13% mark. We are going to be growing much faster. Our target, right, by 2030 is much higher. It's in the range of 75% plus. And as we speak today, we have an AI task force committee that is basically looking at revising the strategy for both public sector and also private sector. And we are also at the midst of really conducting an AI survey for us to analyze and understand our readiness. So I'm at a very, very excited stage to basically say that as we speak today, I'm happy because we have more than 85 companies that have surveyed and have actually stepped up saying that we are producing products, we have go-to-market strategies, which is quite high, right? If we consider that the Greek ecosystem, which is much bigger from us, it's about an 11 million population, so that's 11 to 1 ratio, is already at 180 plus AI startups. So I think the numbers are in our favor, and I do see that with the incentives and the programs we have a very, very good possibility for us to move the right building blocks and pivot to a hub.
I don't know if a lot of people know all the information you just provided now, but to me it's impressive how much we've accomplished as a country and where we stand. Yes, there is room for improvement. There is a long road ahead, but I think we're making leaps, and it's amazing how good results we have in the last years. And of course, I'm noting that we do have top-down policy coming from the government, bottom-up innovation happening throughout the ecosystem. So Ingrid, from your perspective, what's going on in the industry? How is the private sector changing in this respect, and what is your own experience?
Yes, so from a Cablenet point of view, what we see is we're living through a data explosion, right? As Demetris rightly pointed out, connectivity is rapidly growing, the demand for connectivity. And also what we see is customer expectations, which are shifting. So it's not only about collecting data, storing data, and protecting this data anymore, but it's about making data-driven decisions, which will positively impact both the business and also the customer experiences. What this means is that the role of the Chief Digital Officer and Chief AI Officer are also evolving, because it's not only about governance and compliance anymore, but it's about really leading business decisions through the use of all this data. We are also seeing an increase in demand for AI, as Demetris also rightly pointed out, across not only our industry in the telecommunications sector, where there are use cases like personalization of customer experiences, proactive monitoring of the network, optimization, but also from talking to our clients in other industries like fintech, for example. So, of course, the need of having a community of like minded professionals is even more important.
Yep. Which actually brings me to the whole idea that brought us together to begin with, the UCLan Cyprus initiative to develop and host a community for chief data and AI officers in Cyprus. The first time I mentioned that to you, you were both supportive. You seem excited from my perspective about this possibility. Our aim at this time is to bring together all the ecosystem stakeholders, be that the government, the industry, the academia, the researchers, who can together drive this change in Cyprus and build the knowledge capacity that is necessary for Cyprus, for the Cypriot ecosystem to grow. So, how valuable do you think this is at this moment and at this stage of our growth as a country? Is this something that will assist in enhancing our existing research and innovation ecosystem?
I think that's a I think a very interesting question, and I will answer in a very simple way. 2004, we actually had the pride of winning the Euro, and since then, 20 years, 21 years later, the amount of data that we are faced to deal with is basically seeing an explosion of 18,000 times. The amount of time that a working professional, either a researcher or a colleague sitting, at an SME or at an enterprise organization, is not decreasing. The number of hours in a day or in a week are not decreasing either. So what this means is that we humans at all levels of our careers, be it a manager, an executive, an administrative resource, a worker, or even a researcher, have to actually manage, understand, extract insight, and manipulate or use data for ordinary areas. Now, the thing with the challenge with the private industry and also the public sector is that we have always been used to the usual role of the CTO, right? And we have not seen too much, at least here in Cyprus, the evolution of the chief digital officer across the SMEs, across universities, etc. And it's very important because I'm not going to say that for us to move to AI we need data. I'm going to say something even simpler, right? If we don't understand what we have in our pockets, in our databases, in our data warehouses, we don't have an easy way of really understanding where the value in our organization is. And bringing together, building a community that will bring people who have experiences from industries, from sectors, from universities, to really start looking at how do we extract that value, how do we process it faster, how do we build new business models, right, to move forward. If we don't do that, we won't be as successful. So I think this is the right time. We know we're behind Europe on the digital skills. We're at about 49.5%. So digital is a way for us to catch up, but it's not just digital. It's doing the right things. And data is not just the new oil, as we say. It's the supercharger. So I think this is an amazing opportunity, and as we're building the strategy, we're revising the strategy, I find it very exciting to have bodies, right, or basically committees that bring together communities of like-minded people who are going to be putting progress, data, AI first, and not, siloed interest. So I very welcome this opportunity, and thank you for, I think, initiating it.
Great.
I completely agree to what you just said. The truth is that many of us are facing the same challenges, whether it's dealing with AI ethics, for example, or the quality of the data, or even finding talent to be able to drive all this innovation forward. So having a community which supports of like-minded people which can discuss and support all this ecosystem allows us to adopt best practices much faster. So the way I look at it is it would be nice to have a sort of a think tank for Cyprus where we can influence also decision-making, national policy, and also help to achieve tangible solutions for our businesses.
Okay, so I'm noting from both of you that we do need peer-to-peer support, and that's an important aspect, and that we need to all collectively influence the bigger research and innovation ecosystem in Cyprus. The role, the position specifically for the Chief Data Officer, it's an important one. A community can support on the education side, development side, and exchange of practices and so forth. So, what's in it for someone, for a professional, for an expert in data transformation, in AI, and so forth, to join this community? Why should someone be a member of this community?
First of all, personal development, because the technology landscape is changing so fast, the evolution is so fast that it's, of course, important for professionals to invest in continuous learning. So it's a community like this would also help individuals to keep up to date with what is happening. Secondly is networking. Often we find ourselves trying to solve problems which have already been solved in other industries. So why not come together and share these experiences? And thirdly, I believe there's also an element of credibility. So being part of a community ensures that people are also committed to excellence and ethical way of using technology.
I fully agree with what Ingrid has said. I would just add the following 3 points. I think when you actually are part of a community, you also have a way of assessing, right, and learning much faster from other best practices that others have, right? So most of us in the industry, right, or in our job roles are confined to specific type of restrictions that sometimes don't allow us to think out of the box and to really look at, how technology could be an enabler to move forward. And I think for the stage where Cyprus is today, I think a community of chief digital officers and chief AI officers allows us to accelerate, the cross-industry digitalization. It allows us basically to really create, I would say, for example, faster acceleration for SMEs to move forward. So the benefit for, I think, these people that participate in as members, besides, exchanging know-how, is to actually, right, spot opportunities that could lead, to the next Cyprus grown unicorns, right? I mean, imagine that we've seen it, for example, in Scandinavia, where people looked at how to use data and eventually they created a business model that unlocked Angry Birds, right? So you look at all of these ideas and you realize that today, a chief digital officer and a chief AI officer is as important for the success of a company as important is a doctor for the health and well-being of our own lives. So in the digital world, as we're slowly moving to a digital world where we're thinking about, digital first, a phygital economy, right, where, there is a combination of hybrid, physical, and digital, these people have the opportunity of being the superstars, the enablers that are going to be able to inspire people of how do you pivot there, right? And getting that right is not just a form of recognition. It's part of being part of the journey that will unlock what we see the productivity for the next 1 or 2 decades, right? Which is, I think, a monumental opportunity. And I think it's a great opportunity for us here in Cyprus to be so proactive for it. So I think that's a stellar incentive, in my perspective.
Very well said. I totally agree with what both of you said. So if I have to put it at a high level, then we need to have a graceful collaboration between the stakeholders. We have the government that sets the framework, sets the policy that we need to operate within. Then we have the industry, we have the researchers, who are the ones who join forces and they innovate within the ecosystem. We have academia who will be, let's say, responsible to train our next chief data officers or chief AI officers and so forth. And then we have the community with all the stakeholders that needs to ensure that they all remain in sync. So the role of this community is to ensure that all these stakeholders that are important to this ecosystem can be in sync between them, and work towards the same goal. Now, of course, we've discuss the benefits. Any opportunity comes with challenges. So I'm assuming there will be challenges as well when we want to build this community in Cyprus. From your perspective, what are the obstacles that you foresee trying to put together all these stakeholders and create this community?
I see the first obstacle being talent, because we mentioned already before that there is a shortage of professionals, skilled data professionals in the industry, and this will hopefully be also one of the outcomes of a successful community, right? The second would be alignment. So we really need to make sure that this community is not open only for the big players, but also the small players. We mentioned a very successful SME ecosystem. These people also need to be represented and have a part of this community. And finally, of course, there needs to be the ethical use and trust of the technology to make sure that it is adopted responsibly.
I would add, I think, my two pieces of thinking here, that most of the times people want to be in a community to influence decisions. And I think in this particular case, we know we are at the 13% adoption of AI 2025, and there is another 87% to grow. So the focus should be on creating value. And as long as we create value, and that value is actually going to be correlated back, it's very easy for us to show how important this contribution could be to really help us shape what's up next. The second item that I will say is that usually what we see in communities is there is this inertia, there is this lack of sustainability, as people basically go to one or two, let's say, sessions, and then they start not finding that value or not feeling that they're at home. And I think that's where this type of community, I would encourage and hope for that it would have a different type of a mindset, a different type of a feeling, right? So where it's okay to brainstorm together, it's okay for us to mentor each other, it's okay for us to exchange opportunities, it's okay for us to use this as an opportunity to connect to high profile speakers or evangelists or thought leaders, or I think inspiring luminaries that have actually changed the world, right? So I mean, I'll give you an example. Some inspiring luminaries are going to be at the Reflect Festival or the Doers Festival in Dubai, right? Should you want to have the challenge or the opportunity to meet up close somebody who has created one of the most popular games or one of the most popular, MarTech, AdTech platforms or gaming platforms, that could be facilitated, right? So this community, if created in a way that it basically starts creating value for all participants, is something that will make it actually much more sustainable. And I think obstacles can always be removed by showing the value. And I think given the large amount of work to be done to pivot to a digital first, to cloud first, to an AI first, I think society where we will actually leverage and harness technology to support humanity, I think there's more opportunities than there are obstacles. And I think it's to our common interest, be it, for example, committee members or I think policymakers or others, to help facilitate, right, and help create that path. So I would focus more on, finding those areas where we can create value and capture that value that, creates a reinforcing cycle that really helps Cyprus evolve much faster.
So I'm noting that we need good governance, we need inclusivity, and we need sustainability. These three are key so that we can have a good community with impact and value. We need a solid roadmap to make sure that the community lasts and also delivers value. And going to what Ingrid said, that there is a shortage at this stage. So we're looking for members for the community, but there is a shortage of talent in Cyprus, especially for these specific positions. Then this community should have as a priority first tasks to be completed. One should be to train and upskill existing workforce in Cyprus. This is a responsibility of education institutions. UCLan Cyprus is one of them, and we are committed to create the necessary programs or professional development certifications and so forth, so that we can upskill the existing force, train the new workforce. Other institutions can join the community, and we can collectively all, as academic institution, support the development of the workforce. And then the second one is to engage experts from the international community. So we need to bring people from the international scene who are experts. They can help on the education side, but they can also interact with local talent. They can share their extensive experiences they have. They can share their knowledge. They can share practices. They can share skills. So it's important to make sure that the first two things that the community focuses on will be education and will be engaging international experts in this sense. Now, looking a bit forward, let's say that we are having this discussion in 3, 4, 5 years' time. What do you consider a success for this community?
I personally, I would say that at least I would like to see in Cyprus by 2030, a community where we have at least 100 to 150 members that are basically certified chief digital officers. The same with chief AI officers, where basically these people are the people that are basically sharing the best practices, and really pivoting Cyprus into the next era. We do have several chief digital officers that are enterprise grade, but I think that one chief digital officer can influence maybe a team of 20, 30, 40, 50, and that's how we create, I think, the capacity we need as a nation. So let me just say that today, if I recall the numbers that I shared with you earlier or before, we're about 500 startups, right? However, what I didn't tell you before is that since 2024 to 2025, the number of startups in Cyprus, according to Startup Blink, increased by more than 71%. So if we are going to become a hub, that means that we're going to probably increase, 3, 4, 5x, and that requires a lot of capacity. The more specialized these people are, the leaders, I think the better chance we have of really capturing a big part of this $1 trillion economy. I mean, just alone AI was forecasted to be, about $15 trillion opportunity until 2030, and that was a year ago. So this economy is really growing so fast that the only way to capture it is to build correctly. And I think that's where we go back to saying that this is where we need these types of leaders to come in, step up, and really lead the way.
From my end, I totally agree with what Demetris said. I would love to see Cyprus recognized as a regional hub for data innovation. So having this active community of people who are engaged and sharing and growing this economy would be really, really nice. And also what you mentioned about the focus of having also people from international stage to share their own experiences and also continue to increase the talent pool which we have here.
So we need an active and a thriving community, based on what you said. We need to have a real impact on business and on society at the same time. And this should be leading Cyprus to be recognized as a hub for innovation and to be the place of choice for many innovators.
Exactly. And that can only happen if we step up and we all have accountability. right? So you have to have accountability to ensure that sustainability is there, accountability for innovation. And I think, just like cooking, the ingredient is the chief digital officer, right? And the chef could be the chief AI officer, complemented with the CXO team. So I think these elements should be there. And I think I'm very happy for being invited to the session today. Thank you.
Thank you. So discussion is very insightful. It's very inspiring with you too. I'm sure we can talk a long time about this. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to continue part one. It's over. So I would like to sincerely thank you for the conversation. And I would like to wish you a good discussion. I'm looking forward to the discussion with Mr. Deepak Shantani in part B, and listening to the conversation on the roles of the chief, specific roles and more details on the roles of the chief data officer as well as the chief AI officer in Cyprus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.